Hi, everybody. I'm here today to talk about the rise and fall of BlockFi, one of the biggest lenders in the crypto space. I'm going to talk about the crypto contagion that's been going on, why they kind of fell apart here, and what you can do to stay safe. So before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Ledin. Full caveat here, Ledin does some of the similar services that BlockFi does. However, they have had no losses and they have not halted any redemptions, and they're one of the few lending platforms that is still credible and as well respected in the space. So definitely recommend you check them out. The link is below. Be cautious with when you lend out your Bitcoin. You are taking on a risk, so keep that in mind. All right, so let's go ahead and jump on in. The rise and fall of BlockFi. So BlockFi is a financial platform that allows retail traders to lend their crypto to earn a yield or borrow against their crypto to get a fiat loan. The company was founded back in 2017 by two people, Zach Prince and Flory Marquez, in New Jersey. They raised their first round of $1.5 million in February 2018, and then eventually raised over $1.3 billion total as of late 2021 with a $4 billion valuation. So everything seems fine. They're growing super fast. Well, what happened? Early 2022 wasn't great for BlockFi, as they were fined $100 million by the SEC for violating the Securities Act of 1933 and the Investment Company Act of 1940. Basically, the SEC is like, hey, you can't let people earn a yield unless you are a bank or you have a special SEC carve-out. So per their settlement, they couldn't, they had to discontinue interest accounts for new customers, but existing customers could still keep theirs. However, the worst was yet to come. In May, Luna Terra imploded. I don't know if anyone saw this. It was a $19 billion collapse of the Terra stablecoin, which is backed by Luna and other crypto assets. This caused a cascading liquidation bank run across the crypto ecosystem. This led to some counterparties who had borrowed from Celsius, BlockFi, Voyager, etc., to default in their payments. When the large hedge fund Three Arrows Capital blew up, it left many counterparties, such as, like I said before, Celsius, Voyager, BlockFi, Blockchain.com, and Genesis, with losses. Celsius halted withdrawals first and is now entering bankruptcy. So this was a pretty big deal. So this just happened a couple days ago. Or 8 days ago. So yeah, Celsius hired advisors to help with their bankruptcy proceedings. Voyager, which had a $600 million loss with Three Arrows Capital, halted withdrawals as well. By the way, like Three Arrows had a loss in Luna, which then led to a loss, led to a default with their lenders. So this was just as of yesterday with Voyager halting withdrawals. Wrong. There we go. And Genesis, the most mature and sophisticated lending desk in the space. They've been around the longest. They have the biggest lending book. They have the best risk management capabilities. Even they had a big loss here. It's rumored to have been $500 million to $1 billion loss. However, they made so much money that they could plug the hole. Michael Morrow here is the CEO. He basically confirmed, yes, we had a loss, but we plugged it and we're okay. Now, again, all of these come with risks, so they could be okay today, but not okay tomorrow. That exists for any of these products that I talk about or any of these services. So as panic spread, retail depositors clammed to get their money out of these services. While BlockFi met all withdrawal requests, they were planning a new fundraising round at a $1 billion valuation, a down round. They soon realized an immediate capital infusion was necessary. So FTX came to the rescue with a $400 million revolving credit facility. Think about this like your credit card limit, and an option to purchase BlockFi for $25 to $250 million, depending on performance goals. You basically had to make a little bit of a deal with the devil. I like SBF and I like FTX, but I'm sure that they only took this deal because it's the only deal they had. So basically it was whatever terms that he wanted. And so I think this is a fantastic outcome. By the way, that $400 million revolving credit facility, that isn't paid back until depositors are paid back. So that's pretty cool how they structured that. I think that's very, very honorable. Going back to, I've talked a lot about lending out your Bitcoin to earn a yield. The risk and rewards of lending Bitcoin, look, it's one of the most oldest fundamental forms of finance. And when you lend out your Bitcoin, you're earning compensation based on the risk you are taking with your capital. Ultimately, what you want to do is have that best return per unit of risk. Taking risk isn't a good or bad thing. It's inherent for any investment, but you want to make sure that you've appropriately sized your risk. And when you lend out your coins, you have to trust that these services have evaluated their counterparties properly. And so, that's a really tricky thing to do. It's your keys, your coins. You can store it in cold storage, which I recommend for a vast majority of your coins. But if you want to earn a yield, you want to take risk. Taking risk then earns you that yield. there's no such thing as a free return. So people are realizing that now. They go, oh, wait a second, actually, this is a big deal. Is the return for lending services worth it? That's subjective and up to each person to decide. And my thoughts on this space kind of in total, I've personally experimented over 2.5 years with different lending services. This is a spreadsheet, which I'll include in the description, with where my coins are at currently, and then services that I've evaluated. So for example, I have had Celsius, Voyager, Crypto.com in red the entire time over the last 2.5 years. So I don't personally recommend that anyone use these services. They had a token which was completely unnecessary and added risk. They played fast and loose with the rules. So since day one, I was warning against using these services, and ultimately that shows. The services where I have coins, none of these have pushed losses on. So Anchorage had no losses, Ledin had no losses, and Genesis and FTX had no losses, and Genesis had losses but plugged it with their own balance sheet. So I believe that my assessment of my counterparty risk was done well so far. We'll see if I get a loss in the future. I'm not trying to be arrogant or cocky and say that I can perfectly assess counterparty risk, but it is nice to know I didn't pick one of the riskier ones which blew up. And so, what does this mean? When I go look at where I lend out my coins, I think about it very carefully. I don't just go for the place with the highest yield. I go for a place that I believe is trustworthy. So I critically examine my counterparties. Definitely recommend you check out the blog post by Anchorage Digital, The Path Forward on Crypto Lending. They are very conservative with their lending standards, and Genesis is one of the most mature spots in the crypto ecosystem, and Ledin uses Genesis on the back end. So I thought carefully about who I worked with and who I'm taking risk with. If a service offers a higher yield than market rate, they're either subsidizing the yield or they're taking on more risk. There's no way around that. By the way, I moved my coins out of BlockFi. Some people might have been like, well, Dan, you recommended BlockFi in the past. Well, almost a year ago, August 30th, they accidentally sent $20 million to the wrong person. And then they also lowered their interest rate to a rate below market. And I decided that wasn't worth the risk for me. So I moved my coins off and I told everyone about it. So I had no exposure to BlockFi. By the way, no one at BlockFi has a loss, but they could have had a loss if they weren't bailed out by FTX. But it's moments like these where, you need to stay up to date with the market. You need to know what's going on. I mean, there were so many red flags from Celsius. It's kind of crazy if you had coins still stuck there. Honestly, that's your fault for not looking at the glaring alarm bells going off, going like, why would you leave money with these people? But I do want to admit, I want to be humble, admit, I underestimated the stupidity and risk-taking behavior of these retail lenders. I mainly work with institutional only now with Genesis and Anchorage. While I thought they would have worked with the slightest tinge of maturity with their loan book, many acted as a glorified hedge fund. And we should definitely push for more transparency, like Ledin's proof of reserves. That's also why I like Ledin. They do kind of like an audit, but not an audit. And we should push for accountability and integrity. I'm very disappointed with, I didn't have my coins at these other places, but just to see the complete disregard for, I would say, basic risk management is egregious and an embarrassment for the crypto space. So if you lend out your coins, do it in a manner where you're comfortable with the risk. If you're not, then don't do it. But hope you enjoyed this. Hope this shed some light on what happened with BlockFi and what you can do with your coins in the future. Cheers. Bye.